Hey, everybody. Here we are in another episode of Entrepreneur Minds Speak. And today's episode is going to be about money mindset. Last week, we talked about how much money you need for your business to get started and ongoing expenses. And this week, we're going to talk about money mindset. We felt like this was a really important topic to talk about. And Natalie and we have a lot to share on this topic. It's kind of a tricky topic.
It's a very tricky topic, and I think it's more relevant than ever right now, since we have a little bit of financial insecurity feeling amongst a lot of people right now. The news is very negative in regards to finances, and people are very stressed out in regards to finances. So I think it's a really good time for us to reflect on the subject and see how we can help people through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was diving into this topic, I was thinking about limiting beliefs. Like, what are my limiting beliefs about money? So limiting belief is a state of mind or belief about yourself that restricts you in some way. And usually these beliefs are like false accusations you make about yourself that can cause a number of negative results. So some limiting beliefs are like, I'm not good with money. Having money is selfish. Money is the root of all evil. I'm not worthy of money or being wealthy. So these are some limiting beliefs. They're kind of like broken record thoughts that play over and over in your head.
Totally. I know even for myself, a huge thing that I had to overcome being in the web development and design space is because you're making a creation and you're only spending time doing that, especially when I was just starting out and it was, just me and I didn't have any partners or anyone I was collaborating with. And I would sell a project and I could not confront figuring out a price that was right for my time and my value. Even though I had been in the space a very long time, I was already putting out really good work and getting good results for clients. I had a really hard time figuring out a price for myself, which actually kept me back from starting my own business for a very long time because I just did freelance projects on the side. And I felt like it was really hard to come up with a number. And I think that's something that especially those in kind of creative fields, I know a lot of artists struggle with this and musicians, like how do you put a number on something that you are kind of creating? And a lot of the time you're kind of creating for fun, like how do you put a number on that? And how do you value yourself? That was something I really had to get over and get comfortable with.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. Like when I first started my business, I would struggle when I would talk to clients about estimates and, money, and they would call me up. They'd say, okay, like, I need an estimate for this project. Like, tell me how much that costs. And I would struggle with it. I would struggle with figuring out like what to charge them. Even if I had to bring up the topic of money, like sometimes in that first conversation, I would want to know what their budget was because, I don't want to send them a proposal if we're not even on the same page, right. Like if they're thinking, oh, it's $500 for me to design their logo and packaging. And I'm like, no, it's 5,000. Like then we're wasting each other's time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So having that conversation was really important, but I found myself like kind of tiptoeing around it. Like I didn't want to talk about it. Like I didn't feel confident. I felt kind of scared. And I realized that was coming back to my money mindset.
When it comes to paying for things like design, it's very easily attacked. I know that, and that's for artists as well, and I'm sure that it's in other industries, but it's very easy to get comments of like, why is it so expensive? How long does that actually take you? What I saw another designer that was going to do it for $100. These kinds of questions are very common in our space, especially to people that are just starting out. And that probably goes for many, many different industries. And I think that's something that when you're just starting out and you're getting hit with those kinds of questions, you don't totally know your own value yet. And then you start questioning yourself. You're like, why is it that expensive? I don't know. Like, why does it have any number assigned to it at all? And you have to kind of like work through that period and keep doing it in order to build up your confidence. At least that's what I found.
If we kind of move on to how do we handle these broken record thoughts? How do we handle these limiting beliefs? And I started looking at what are some tips, how do I change that for myself? And
Mhm.
one of the things I came across was reminding yourself why you're in business. For myself,
Yeah.
I started my business because I wanted to empower entrepreneurs to do what they love, to launch
Yeah.
that product that they're excited about. And I was reading somewhere the other day that I think it was in the journal of health psychology, that having a sense of purpose is a positive predictor of financial success.
Oh
So
my God, that's interesting. I
uh,
can totally think with that, because I think that when it comes to selling anything, the more conviction you have of your own product or whatever product you're selling, the better you're going to be able to sell it. So if you feel like what you're doing really makes a difference to other people's lives and you want to do your best work in order to accomplish that, then you'll feel more comfortable charging more or accepting more money for that.
right, because you're going to back it, and you're going to fully back it with your entire being.
Yeah, I was surprised, because I was also looking a little bit just in regards to what is the financial mindset and how to change it, or how to improve it. And one thing that it kind of surprised me, but it kind of didn't surprise me, was that I believe it was 70%. If I look here, I can see 70% of people, their biggest stress is finances. Like, they walk around constantly, and it's very apparent, actually. As a matter of fact, like, you can talk to almost anyone these days, and people are now more than ever upset about the rising costs and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like that's another kind of attack on your own mindset, because it's like a scarcity problem. And it creates this atmosphere that there isn't a lot of money. And that is, I think, one of the biggest lies of our society, because there is so much money, especially in the United States. Like, there is so much. Now, that doesn't mean it's not like tricky to figure out getting it. You have to figure out what lines are going to work. What are your products? What do people really want? What are people going to be willing to, buy or pay for whatever the product is, and all this kind of stuff. But I know that it really helped me to realize, like, wow, there's actually so much money in this country. We're in my opinion, very lucky to be living here, and where there is so much opportunity, and a lot of people are willing to spend a lot of money on whatever things, if it's going to improve their lives. And that was something that really helped with my money mindset, because just in our local communities, yeah, 70% of the people are going to be stressed about it. I know I've been stressed about it. I know, like, my parents, like, everybody that all of us know have at some point been stressed about money. It's a very common thing. And it's hard to kind of remember that, like, there's still a lot of people and a lot of businesses that have a lot, and they want to invest it in something that's going to be better for them. And that was something that I really had to, like, always remind myself of, especially in those beginning stages.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard you touch on a limiting belief that, there's not enough money out there. And I think that when you have that fear of, there's not enough money to support me in my business, you paralyze yourself. And
100%. Because then all of a sudden you're like, maybe I should do something else.
right,
Like, how
right.
many business owners and how many times have we ever had that, where we're like, maybe I should just get a job? Like, then you'd have a quote unquote guaranteed paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. I did that earlier in my business. I did exactly that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's if that's what you need to do. But
Right.
it's also like working on our mindset too. And, remembering like how we handled money in the past, like a positive way that we handled money. So thinking about like, maybe you put money aside for a trip at one point, maybe you paid off your credit card, really focusing on the little successes and keep reminding ourselves of those little successes.
And I think that that's kind of one of the main pillars that will actually help people through. And I know it's helped me through feeling more in control of money, is that like it's making plans, feeling in control, because you have, whatever your payments are organized, you have your, everything, your assets or whatever in a spreadsheet, like however you can organize your finances so that you feel like you have control over it. Because I feel like that's where the most stress comes from, is when people feel like they're losing control over their own finances, which is their entire survival. So of course you're going to be stressed about it.
Having a plan, like what you're talking about, and then also just keeping a running list of your accomplishments, so that you can remind
Yeah.
yourself over and over that you can do this, and each time you succeed, you'll move closer to your goal and further away from the belief that limits you.
It's like you're actively practicing not being worried about money.
And one of the other things I was noticing when I was looking at different ideas of how to handle this was to be grateful. And Brene Brown, she suggested keeping like a gratitude jar where you write down something that you're thankful for every single day. I had something similar to this a few years ago. I created a gratitude jar where I was like, okay, every time something great happens, I'm going to put it in this jar. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to go through it. But you can do the same thing with a money mindset jar where you create daily affirmations that you put in the jar, and then you look at them, and you want to continue to remind yourself of what you want your money mindset to be.
Which reminds me of, like, I think one of the key points, and I believe you mentioned this to me too, was like, rather than comparing yourself to others, focus on yourself and your own situation and your own wins and your own affirmations. Because I think that comparison can be so false most of the time. You have no idea what you're comparing yourself to. Your neighbor might have like, the most beautiful car ever. That doesn't mean that, they have vast more wealth than you do. And even if they do, it doesn't matter, because they're in a totally different situation. So I think that that's one of these attributes that really, really helps to like not compare yourself and just keep on moving towards your own goals, because you never know how other people got where they are, or where they even are, really, because that's not necessarily a public thing to know about.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And that's definitely one that I feel like I have to work on myself. And then the other thing is if you're going to compare, like compare yourself to where you were a few years ago and see
Yes.
how far have I come? And when you
Right.
start looking at that comparison, sometimes you realize how far you've grown and how much you've changed, and how much your business has grown.
Such a good point. I know for me, like, I have like I don't know that this is a common thing, but this is something that I do and I find it very helpful. So I have my own, this is just for my own personal income, but you could do it for business, you could do it for anything. So I have my revenue personally graphed by month. So I know exactly, okay, good. Even if I'm a little bit down on one month to the other month, but if I look on a bigger chart and I see that I'm making double of what I did last year, for example, that's then a huge win. And then I'm not so, I'm not so taken aback by a little dip one month to the next. So you can keep that bigger picture and see like, oh yeah, like I'm making much more money than I did 2 years ago, or my business is making much more money than I did a few years ago. Keeping that like really easily visualized helps me a lot to keep perspective in that, like, I'm continuing to grow constantly.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like something I could use as well. As much as like we're talking about money mindset, I know I still struggle with some of this stuff. And I think that's one part of, of this conversation that I want other entrepreneurs to understand, is that it's one of these topics that I think you're going to continue to work on and continue to work through, because it's not just a one and done, like I'm going to change my mindset and everything's going to be perfect. I think it takes time for that to happen. And I mean, anytime you make a change, especially if it's part of your belief system, it can take time. And not only that, but the people that you surround yourself with may also shape some of the limiting beliefs that you have. These are things that you have to constantly work on. If you have a limiting belief, you have to continue to kind of check in with it and see if you can shift it, because it may take some time to shift it.
Oh yeah. And oh my God, it's so hard. Like it really is. I mean, I found it anyways. I found it one of the hardest things to remember to do and to like constantly be positive about, because there's a reason why there's so many people that are stressed about it, and you're constantly being hit by it with the news. And it is a constant problem that's being presented to you every single day in one way or another, oh, a new bill here, or an increased price here, or a sale that you were expecting didn't go through. Like there's so many points that are external to yourself that can create a bad effect on you if you allow it to. And it's really, I feel like it's in our nature to react badly to that. And so you have to kind of go against that and be like, that doesn't make me happy. Got it. It's don't invalidate how you're feeling, because that is how you're feeling. But how do you turn that into a positive action and not actually go into a position where you're feeling less about yourself, or you're feeling stressed out, or you're going down some kind of spiral that can really take you out the bottom? How do you turn that into a creative solution on the other end? And I think it's one of the hardest things to do. Like it's so much easier said than done. But if you work at it just a little bit, you'll feel a lot better and you'll probably get a lot farther.
It's definitely more one of these incremental things. If every day you have it posted, a little sticky note next to your computer, or you have it on your phone, or a daily reminder. Like I have some affirmations that I want to believe. So they're beliefs that are positive beliefs that I want. And I have them pop up like every day at 10 a.m. as a reminder.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, as a reminder. And that was actually something that, I work with a therapist, and that was something that she had suggested to me. She said, okay, just like put that on your phone, and then every day you're going to be reminded and you're going to look at it.
Yeah.
And the more that we feed those positive affirmations into our minds, those positive beliefs that we want for ourselves, the easier it will be to overcome the ones that we don't like.
Right. Oh my God, that's so true. And then probably also even shutting off areas that would be not helpful, right? Like I imagine like, okay, if you're finding yourself going down like a spiral because you're watching Instagram and you're seeing all these what seem like very wealthy people throwing money around, and it's making you feel bad about where you're at, maybe unsubscribe or like delete the app if you could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a friend that once said to me, many of us are conscious of what we eat. We're aware of, okay, like if we eat, fruits and vegetables, if we eat a healthy diet, we're going to have a healthy body, right?
Yeah.
We don't always think about what we feed our brain. What content are we feeding our brain on a regular basis? And is that content helpful to us or not helpful? And that's not just like, it's not just like what we're seeing from outside of us, but also the stories that we repeat in our minds, those broken thoughts that we repeat over and over and over again.
Right. Oh, I totally agree with that. I definitely think that like your life becomes a reflection of how you're feeling about things and how you're viewing the world. And again, it's like I don't see this as an easy change. It's not like you wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to see everything positively and everything's going to automatically be amazing. I think it's something you keep putting that there through action and affirmation, and then action again to keep validating your thoughts through positive action that go along with them. And then you'll find yourself in a much better place. At least that's what I'm hoping, because that's what I'm going to keep working on as well.
Yeah. And one of the practices that I did for a while, I would write down in a journal what I wanted to feel. I wrote it in present tense, and then I would say it out loud to make sure that I fully embraced it, because when you visualize it and you hear it and you write it and you read it and you say it in present tense, your body and your mind starts to believe that that is the way that it is.
Right, right. I think that's such powerful stuff. It reminds me of Think and Grow Rich, I believe goes over this kind of thing. I didn't read the whole book. It's actually one that I would love to, but I believe that that is part of what he talks about, is like that constant putting that vision there, and you decide, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be. What are the thoughts that follow that kind of person? Well, how would that person think about money, or how would they think about time, or how would they think about business? And I think that's a very interesting concept, and that's totally something that we can like actively use to think more positively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think making sure that we say it in that present tense so that we can try to believe it. And one of the things is if you don't fully believe it yet, you can also say, I'm learning too. So that's another way that I've kind of, if I feel like I'm not quite there yet, and if I say this thing, it's going to feel really false to me, I will say like, I'm learning to XYZ. And then at some point, you won't just be learning, you'll actually feel like good about, the money that you have earned and the life that you've created.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I know that I was recently reminded of this, and it follows along with this perfectly, is that like know your own value. So like you have your product, whatever that is in whatever industry, and you as a person bring a certain amount of magic to that product as well. And that in itself has an inherent value. So I think that your value of self, that is something to really reflect on as well. And that could probably be a whole other video, but I think that when you learn to really value yourself, then it becomes much easier to see the value as money as a tool rather than something that, determines your value. You're actually determining the value of money rather than the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Entrepreneur Minds Speak. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.